So we have looked at not null. We can now look at another constraint, and that will be the unique constraint. Remember, we said that this makes sure that the column you have, or the items or the data that you are going to enter into that particular column, is unique or is different from any other data. And we are saying that a primary key constraint automatically has got a unique constraint, like we had seen. We can also say that however many, you can have many constraints per table. You can have, say, unique of last name, unique of first name, unique of any other thing, maybe expiry date, but you can only have one primary key per table, and we shall prove that when we come to primary keys for the case of primary key. So you can create a unique constraint directly when you are creating a table, or you can also create it when the table has already been created, and we shall see other variations of how to go about this unique thing. So without any wastage of time, we can come here. We can use the same table, or we can just change another one, but in the interest of time, we could just copy this and then we put it here and change the names, maybe to say customers. The table can be customers, then this automatically will be customer ID, and maybe we would change this. We are saying not null, which is okay. We can choose to change this to email. Since we are dealing with people, we can change that to email, and of course it will also be var character. We could assume that the email of these people, let's say 30 characters, and then we can set it to be unique, just like that, this. So when we put unique here, we are trying to say that whatever is in the email section must be treated as a unique value, and it is not supposed to be duplicated. So we could, for example, run this, and then just click here. We shall have created that table. Once the table is created, we can prove that it exists by saying select all from customers, and then we run that, and we shall have our table with empty columns. All we wanted was to create that unique. We can also create unique as a table constraint. The other one was termed as just a column constraint, but we can make sure it will still act on the same email, but we could set it as a table constraint, or what you would call an alternative. We could say we can just pick this. We can pick this and paste it here, and instead of simply putting that unique like that, we could say comma, then it will require a value here, or the column that you want to be unique from others. So currently the column we want is email, and email is in that nature. So these two would literally or somehow do the same thing, and that is why we would say customers already exists. So you could write it like this or write it like that. We shall see a change somewhere. We can even create another table instead of customers and call it customer, and then run this, and this table will be created. They will definitely have the same constraint unique, and we shall see how we can test this. So what happens is that SQL automatically creates a unique index. We shall talk about index like we have said. That will be our Rust series and constraints. To enforce the uniqueness of data stored in the columns that participate in the unique constraint. So we are saying that therefore if you attempt to insert a duplicate row, the SQL server rejects the change and returns an error message stating that the unique constraint has been violated. So we can try that out quickly. We can say insert into we can choose, okay, we can say customer, insert into customer values. We want to insert all of them, so we are not segregative. We can just say one comma first name. We can maybe say Tarema, then the last name we can be Benjamin, then the email we can prefer here is say btarema@gmail.com. Close the brackets. Now we can run this. We expect this to be okay. There are 4 columns and we also have submitted 4 values. When we run, it is created. We can test to see whether it is created by simply using the select function here and directing it to that particular table. Function customer, we see him here. So to test whether our unique constraint has been set, we can just supply the same parameters. We can copy this. Maybe we can just change this to 2 to avoid too much duplication. We can call this Joseph. Joseph like that. Then we can just change something here. So the email can stay like this because we want to test. The constraint is on the email, so we want to insert this and see whether there are any errors, and if they are, quickly they are telling you that error code 1062 duplicate entry of the email. So that means that what we have created is true and it is effective. We can put customers here. We insert this. We expect it to be going to the customers table. We can now select from the customers here, and it will have one value. We could also try this by saying customers, and then we see what will happen. The same error will come up. So that tells you that in whichever case you set it, whether you simply add unique at the end of each and every column you are setting to be unique, or you simply use the word unique at the end, and in the brackets you supply the column or columns, as we shall see, that you can set it on different or many or more than one column. Whichever way you want it, then you are able to achieve. So we are also saying that if you do not specify a separate name for a unique constraint, SQL Server will automatically generate a name for it. For example, it is being called duplicate entry email for key customers.email, customers being the table name and email being the column, and they are using that to define the error we have got. But we can set our own error such that if we run into challenges, then we we are able to tell which error that could be. So we can choose to create another table because these are already occupied. Can copy. We can come here and maybe create this as custom, something like that. Then we can just change this to custom ID, custom ID, like this. Then for you to be able to give it a name, at the end here, at the end of the last column, you can say constraint. Then you give the name of the constraint. We want this name to be, let's say, unique underscore email, such that when this error comes up, we know that is an error from the email, assuming we had set many unique columns. We could give each one its own name, such that when there is an error, we know which column is causing it. So when we run this, we shall have created a table called we shall have created our table here called the custom, and also inserted those values. Then we can pick this same information here in the interest of time, because you would also not want to keep typing these things. Custom, we can insert this value there, and then we can test that it exists by simply coming here and changing this to custom. That is why I told you need to be going with me. You pause, you type, you run, and then click play again, such that we are at the same state. Because now when I delete this, you will wonder whether it was custom or customer or customers. So we can run this. We have our one value there. We can test it by giving it a duplicate. We can just change the number here for now, maybe to can change the number. Maybe we can now change from Tarema Benjamin to Ben, just this, to Ben. But the question is on email, because that's where the unique constraint is set. So when we click on this, now it throws an error. But what is important, first and foremost, you can say copy row, and maybe we'll try to paste it here. The most important thing is that it is showing us the name now. You can see here, it is showing us the name of the error. Whereas before, we can copy and compare them. Before, it was simply calling it customers.email. Now it is having a name, unique email. So it is telling us that we need to create a unique email in that regard. So we have seen that you could use, and the unique ones can also set to be null, and so we can look at now creating unique on several columns. We can say creating unique constraint on several columns, like that. So creating unique constraints, unique constraint on several columns. We can pick the same table here. I am doing this in the interest of time, otherwise you need to keep on typing to get familiar. We can call this, for example, employee. We can call it employee, then we can just call this employee ID. Then maybe somewhere we can say that since this person is an employee, They also have got maybe skill ID. It doesn't matter whether it is a foreign key here or not, of an integer type. Then we also have got maybe section ID, which is also of an integer type, that this employee belongs to which section, this employee has got which skill sets. Okay, so now we have those employees, rather we have those columns for our table, and we want to create a unique key for more than one column. We could say constraint. So when we start by saying constraint, it means we want to create a unique name. Okay, we can say unique, we can call it unique underscore columns, such that when there is an error, and probably it is brought about by those columns, then we get to know. So we say unique because that is the constraint. Then in brackets we put the columns that we want to be unique. So this is skill. Skill matcher, sometimes it is not case sensitive, but you need to be exact in what you are doing. The next one is section ID, like this. And there is an error here. We need to close the bracket once again because we have this open, comma, unique on columns. We set our constraint, but we did not put a comma here. Once you see this, just know there is an error there. There is an error in your syntax. Even before you run it, you need to go back and check. Even this X will tell you, but we don't have a comma there, and that was all the reason why we were seeing the highlighting here. So we need to remember those commas. So when we do this, we shall have set our table, we shall have created our table employee to have two unique IDs, or rather to have two unique columns, and we shall see what that means. So we can run this to create the table. Successful. So we can come here and say select. We can say select all from employee as the table name, such that we are able to see what we have just created. There. So now we can test our data and see what that means. We can say, we can call this entering data for now. Entering the data. Okay, so we have say insert into employee. We want all of them values. ID we could say maybe let us say 5. Okay, let us start with 3, no problem. The first name could be Tarema. The second one is Benjamin. His email is can say bskycodes at gmail.com. By the way, you can email me directly on that email, bskycodes at gmail.com. And then the skill ID, it could be that the skill set he has is maybe number 220, and he comes from the section he comes from in our company is maybe section 5. We close and terminate, and then we enter this employee. We have issues, column count doesn't match. We need to know what we are missing. We have employee. This is 1 2 3 4 5 6, and we have 1 2 3 4 5 6. We should be able to rectify that. We can we don't have a comma here, so it is looking at it as the same. This is interesting, but very helpful, because you get to see what errors mean and what things you need to test, which is okay. Then we run it again, and now we are successful. If we select from employee, we shall see that guy there. Now remember, our major issue is to make sure skill ID and section ID are not the same. Remember, in our first tutorial about constraints, I told you there are scenarios where you can have a duplicate unique. Now let us try this. You can copy this, okay? We can say testing our unique constraint. It is important when you are programming to have comments, because they are easy to understand. 4 years from now, you might go to code and do not remember exactly what that line of code was doing. But when you have comments, then you can easily remember what you are trying to achieve. So we have uniqueness on this and this. We expect this not to run because it will be unique. It is a duplicate, and you can see our error here. If I was to copy it and bring it up here, we can see we have our error code as unique columns. So that is where our error is lying. But we can twist a little bit. We can create a duplicate. We can say 6 here. Now when we run this, let me show you. When we run this, it is accepted. When we select all from employees, we have the same ID as 2020, which ID was expected to be unique, but we have section ID as 6. Section ID as 5 refused. Why? Because both were unique. So what does this mean? That if you have 2 columns, they cannot be both the same, but one of them can be a duplicate. For example, we can try the same example here. We can copy and insert this. If we run this, it is going to refuse because both are now duplicates, because a 6 exists already. But if we change this from 220 to 222 and maintain the 6, this is going to accept. And we can prove that by making sure that this is green. We run this, and we now have 22 6, meaning if you set a unique constraint on 2 columns, they must not be duplicated. Both cannot be duplicates, but as long as one of them is not the same as any of the values previously inserted, it will still accept. So that is an exception in a unique key, in a unique constraint that you need to watch out. And when we start projects, we shall be able to see how it is used. So now that we have reached that far, we can look at how to delete a constraint. We said deleting a constraint. We can say that alter table. You will realize that in most cases, when you want to add or delete or modify, you will use alter table. the table name is employee. The table name is employee, and you want to do what? Drop constraint. Drop constraint. Maybe let us look at the easy one. You can supply a constraint name up here. We had created a constraint on email here. Okay, so it had a name, this one, unique email. We can copy it, and then we say drop constraint this. Then we close this, or terminate, or end, and then we run this. We have issues. It is telling us that unique email does not exist. We can could be an error because it is not on employee, I think. Where is it? It is on custom. We want to drop it from custom. So we can call this custom like that, and call this custom. Then we run, and now we are successful. So to test that, since we have removed it from this custom, we can try. Let us first select this custom thing. Select or from custom. Then we can run this to see the values there. Let us now try to create a duplicate of an email. We can copy here, paste it here, and then we can just change this maybe to 3 to tell us that it was a duplicate. And now it goes through all those. Then we can refresh, we can select again, and now we have a duplicated email, which tells you that the email has been duplicated. I hope you haven't remembered, rather forgotten. In case you have, to put it back, you can simply say alter table custom, add constraint. You can just put this in drop will take it away, add will bring it back, constraint. Then we would need to define the name and where it is going to be put. The name was this, unique. We can put back the same thing, no problem. Unique email, then we say unique, because this is what will create actually the should be on email. I hope we have the right spelling, otherwise it would create an error to tell us that that column does not exist. So this is dropping it from the table, this is now adding it back to the table in case. So this would be the way you do it in case it wasn't existing, and we are allowed to run it, calling it duplicate entry. Yes. Why is it complaining? Because we already have created a duplicate entry, and it is telling us that please, that entry is not, we need not to have a duplicate entry. So we can go through this. The duplicate entry is here, so we can say we can come here and say update. Okay, update, just like we did for not null, where we had to first update. We can come here and just maybe copy it and paste it down, or if it confuses, you can say update. The table name is custom, update custom, set email. This would be the right spelling, I believe. Email to be we can change it to let's say basic codes. I hope that is not existing there. Gmail.com, because the person is not to have the same email. Update custom set email, that where, okay, we can come here and say where what was it, was custom ID. You can say where custom ID equals 3. We can go back to see whether that is correct. Insert into, yes, values. This is the duplicate, so we want to change this, and the custom ID is written like this. Saying is 3. Remember, we said when we update, the safety thing is going to come up. So when we come back and do this, the safety issue code 1175 comes up. I am repeating these things on purpose such that they stick to your mind, in case you have a challenge. So we go back and say set SQL safe updates equal to 0. So we remove the cap there, accepted, update this, yes, updated, and then we try to add the constraint once again, and now the constraint is also added. So there we are. That is how we do it. So modify constraints does not work because SQL does not have a direct modify unique constraint. Sometimes, therefore, you would need to drop the constraint first and recreate it. How do you drop it? Like this. If you wanted to change the constraint name, or if you wanted to remove the constraint on that, you would have to drop it. If you want to reinstate it, this is the procedure. You have to first update such that there is no duplicate. If there is a duplicate, the constraint unique will not set itself. So thank you very much. I will see you in another tutorial about primary key constraint. Thank you.